Hello, hello. Today I'm going to go over the best nukers in Warframe. Alright, timestamps will be in the description. Hopefully chapters work this time. Alright, so I'm going to go over the list of the 9 best nukers, then I'll tell why, and then we'll go into builds and KPM footage. All KPM footage will be done at 72 FPS capped, and I'll explain why later. So Saryn is number 1 just because of her KPM dominance, and that's mainly because of her AoE. Nezha is at number 2 because of simplicity. You get basically a 35-meter nuke that you can cast at any time, anywhere, with little enemy reliance. Sevagoth has heavy enemy reliance, can get much higher KPM. I just honestly suck at playing him. Cyte is amazing in general. Hildryn is the same, basically a flying Cyte. Voruna is great and a better version of Equinox in my opinion. Gara has survivability issues, and Gauss has redline charging issues. You'll notice that the KPM isn't in order. That's just because I think Sevagoth is great, I just wasn't able to use him to his full potential. Alright, so this is my Saryn build. As far as shards go, it's just 2 corrosive shards, 2 corrosive ability damage shards, and 1 casting speed shard. As far as the actual build goes, you'll see a little different than usual. I have dispensary on 2. I'm sure most people don't do this, they probably run Gloom, but I find no need for the survivability with Horus, and I think that having the energy to miasma spam is absurdly better than Roar. Since you do have dispensary, you'll really need equilibrium, and you obviously always want max range. Your strength doesn't have to be too high, as the only beneficiary is your spores, and you can snapshot those with Molt Vigor. I would recommend Energize, but you don't have to. You could run like Kamisato, or you could run Molt Augmented, whatever you want to do. Um, the rest of the build, I mean, you can swap certain things out. I do like a little more duration because recasting dispensary a little too soon is not very fun. But change up what you want. I'm not particularly married to this build. As far as how to snapshot spores, it's pretty simple. You just void sling twice, then you do your second ability, then you'll alt fire your grimoire, and then you just pop spores, right? So now your spores are snapshotted. So even when they start to spread, they'll go up very fast. You'll see here they died a little too quickly for my liking, but in game you'll see that's never really a problem. You do want to run a Paris Prime stat stick for your Horus. Um, just trying to get your crit chance and status chance up as much as you can. And then your actual Horus is just running for survivability. I like to run synth just for extra energy, but you don't have to. And then the claws just look something like this. Doesn't matter too much. Change up what you want. But basically, you're just miasma spamming. So, I can't really show it too well in Simulacrum. But even without the Grimoire, uh, you just, yeah. It's pretty good. Horus is jump starting it so that you don't have to build up your Saryn. Normally, the issue with people running Saryn Spore is they complain that the build up takes far too long. But when you jump start it with Horus, it's not really a problem whatsoever. You can start immediately, and it will start getting high KPM very, very quickly, and it will start spraying spores quickly. It's just great all around. All right, this is my Sunder Nezha build. So you'll want to run 2 casting speed shards and 3 ability strength shards. Ideally Tau. I just have not put the time into it yet. You'll want to run max range. Duration can go a little lower. You'll want to run high efficiency, and your strength doesn't matter too much. I run Charisma Projection, but you can do whatever you want. Energize, I would really recommend it, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Crepuscular, you can swap this out for Mold Augmented. I just like the strength off rip. Besides that, change up whatever you want. Your limiting range here is not actually Sunder. You do need to have like at least 3 or 4 enemies within the 33.6 meters, but those statuses will be applied to everyone within around 40 meters because your spears have a little bit more range. So, what Sunder Nezha looks like, basically, all you have to do is just spear, then Sunder twice, and then cancel. You don't have to cancel. I cancel just so it's faster, so I can start up the next one quicker. But you do not have to cancel. I generally run Wellspring because sometimes I'm not close enough to the enemies to get their energy orbs. like if they're on another floor. But if you would like to, Matter does help with casting speed. So if you are getting enough energy and you're not having energy problems with Nezha, which isn't super common for me, but might be different for you, you could run just Matter double sling, and then you can do the same thing. And it's a little quicker. It's more damage. It never really matters for me in practice, and I run into a lot more energy problems. So I would generally recommend Zenerik. Besides that, I mean, Sunder Nezha is just by far the easiest nuke in the game, in my opinion. It requires no startup. All you have to do is Sunder twice, and then everything just dies, right? Sometimes your companion will pitch in, and it'll give a lot more heat procs, but you don't really need it, because the way that Sunder Nezha works is it's based on enemy scaling. So for every person in the sphere, normally you would prime up a single person. So you'd give statuses to them, and then those statuses go to the other people, right? That's cool and all, but instead of applying one status to one enemy, how about I apply one status to every enemy? And then all those statuses share. So one Sunder gives 20 heat procs to everyone because there's 20 enemies within my 33.6 meter range for my thermal Sunder. If I do two Sunders, then it's 40 heat procs. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, Sunder caps out at 10 stacks, and you're not wrong, but the damage still helps, which is why I generally do two Sunders. But in lower level stuff like base Steel Path, you can probably get away with a single Sunder. I would just generally recommend to try and do two. Alright, now for my Sevagoth build. So I don't have super high investment into Sevagoth. Like I don't have any shards for him. The build's alright, I'll still show it, but if you do want to be a Sevagoth main, I'd recommend looking somewhere else. Even in high FPS scenarios, it's hard for me to get past around 350 kpm with him, which, it's not great. So I would take my words with a grain of salt. I'm definitely not the biggest Sevagoth player out there. So I run with the normal roar on 4, but I honestly don't use gloom like at all. So if you want to put it over 3 instead, you absolutely can. But ideally, you're not using your shadow anyway. Sevagoth is just 2 and 1 spam. You want to make sure you have his 2 augments. Outside of that, it doesn't matter too much besides range. And then you want relatively low duration because your shadows will get stuck in corners a lot. So you don't want them to be alive for too long. I run corrosive projection. You can run whatever. I also run energize. You can swap that out. Crepuscular, same with Nezha. You can swap that to molt augmented. I run precision intensify just because that's what mainly benefits from strength. But if you want to swap that to umbral, you absolutely can. If you get one more capacity, then you can run cunning drift. I don't really care to. Um, Efficiency, you could fully dump stat it, but I just wouldn't recommend it. I run Zenerik, but you can run Materai instead if you want. I'll show what Sevagoth looks like, but like I said, the gameplay for me is it's not great. I am not the best Sevagoth player, but the build is good. Uh, I would say my build is fairly good. It's just that I'm not very great at it. So like in 72 FPS with something like this, even at my skill, you can expect 200 kpm and then around 350-ish kpm at higher FPS, like 400 FPS. Um, if you're better than me, you might be able to get 250 or like 450 at high FPS. Yeah. All right, so now we have Cyte. So some people might say this isn't a nuke. I would still say it is just a projectile-based nuke like Hildryn or like Saryn Ogris. I run 2 corrosive shards because I run a Cora resupply on Icarius, and then I run 3 ability strength shards. Ideally, these 2 are Tau, just haven't got to it yet. I run Materai because I run Gloom on Cyte, so I run high efficiency Gloom, and that's just because that's, in my opinion, the best way to play Icarius Cyte. But play around with it. This build doesn't matter too much. You can change up Cyte how you would like. Um, Icarius itself, just standard build, just how it is. If you can, you'll want PSF here. I'm not normally a PSF enjoyer. I don't even own it. I I do not have Prime Sure-Footed, but in replacement of it, you can use the Archon Deployer. I went over this in my Cyte video. If you want to look at it, you'll have to refresh it about every 2 minutes, which can be kind of an annoyance. But like I said, I'd check out my Cyte video if you do not have PSF. You max Gloomslow with your double sling. So once you max slow, things aren't really shooting you, even if you turn on the AI. And you just do a lot of damage. Like, your Icarius is good AoE and good damage. So as long as you have the Coral Resupply, everything just dies really swiftly. And because you have that Overguard, you're not getting knocked down even without PSF, right? So this is probably my favorite projectile nuke, like just by far. Some people prefer Saryn Ogris, and I will show footage for that. I just much prefer Cyte Icarius. It is in my opinion very fun. Taking this to disruption cap is like it's like peak Warframe. But yeah, I mean just pretty simple overall. Just Coral Resupply with Icarius, really easy. Alright, this is my Hildryn build. So just 5 ability strength shards, ideally all Tau. Um, I run Matarai, you don't have to. My Balefire looks like this. Ideally these are max level, same with Lethal Torrent. Um, my Hildryn, it doesn't matter too much. Try to stack range. Try to not fall into too low efficiency, or you have to spam pillage a lot, which just is not great in my opinion. You want velocity, you want Avenger. You want Avenger really badly because the base is 5% on Balefire. But besides that, I mean, you want a little bit of strength because it is how you do damage, but your scaling is already on top of shields from Age of Scale. So you do an alright amount of damage anyway. I have Nourish on 3. Some people will use Ward. Ward is better for damage. I like Nourish. I mean, whatever you want to use. Ward is the better for damage, though. I sometimes use Reeve for movement and killing like demos and stuff at EDA, but for the KPM showcase, I use Nourish. So all you do, you just pop into your flight mode, you pop Pillage and Nourish, and then you just shoot. It's a little weak in Sim because Sim damage is like bugged for like everything. But it's like a 15-meter AoE nuke, maybe a little more, a little less. But it's a very large nuke that comes at very little cost. You just can constantly spam it, and it goes all the way out. It also has like in-flight AoE. So unlike Jade, where you have to stay close to the ground and shoot like super close, you have in-flight AoE. So like these bolts have a much larger AoE than like the pin drop on Jade. Um, yeah, it's pretty great. It's basically just a flying Icarius Cyte, and the flight movement is slower, and that's why Cyte is able to pull ahead with more kills. But in my opinion, still amazing projectile nuker. Important things. You're gonna want to run a Magistar, just the normal incarnate evolutions, and you're gonna want to run a Horus. The difference is night and day with and without Horus. I'll show it in just a second. Your Voruna build, make sure you have Prey of Dinar, make sure you have Equilibrium, make sure you have Impetus. The rest of it, up to you. Roll on 4 is what I would recommend. Archon Shards, I don't have any equipped, but if you did want them, you would use 2 Corrosive and 3 Ability Strength, or you would use 5 Ability Strength. Alright, so with Horus, it works really great. You stack your 2, and then you use your Roar. So once my 2 has got Impetus up high, then I can pop my Roar, right? They died to Horus that time, just Horus, not from my abilities. Um, and then I can use my 1. Now I have a target, and then I just attack the target. And Horus will help me kill this target, and then everything will die, right? And it spreads all statuses, not just heat from the Horus. So as long as you tag your red target before it dies, and it doesn't have to die from you, right? If the Horus kills it, everything will still die. So basically, with Voruna like this, you don't have to spam 2 until they die. Like, usually it's a pretty large issue because it can take a long time to actually kill your enemy, especially as you get like as you scale. It takes forever. But when you have a Horus with you, it's a lot quicker, right? So just make sure you have max stacks or close to max stacks when you roar, and then make sure you bring a Horus. If you run low on energy, you're just gonna abuse your 3, right? So uh, I have Magistar here. I just want to do a heavy slam, right? This won't one-shot in Sim because damage is bugged, but they drop energy orbs when they die from your melee attack. So as long as you full slam, they will drop energy health orbs, which can be converted to energy with equilibrium. Now I'm going to show what it looks like without Horus, and like I said, the difference is going to be night and day. Your KBM drops a lot without Horus. I would really recommend running with Horus. So I max my stacks. All right, close enough. Then once I'm here, attack target. And it takes way longer, right? So you get about, I don't know, half the speed. It isn't exactly half the KPM, but maybe like 70%, 60%. So I would really recommend Horus. And also, a lot of your kills are not going to be melee kills. So you will not get the effects from 3. So you do want to run some deconstruct. Yeah, that's about it for Voruna. Alright, Gara. Gonna try to keep this one short. She has 2 main issues: survivability and terrify. So, the reason I run duration as a dump stat is because you're already limited to terrify range. Outside of terrify's range, you have a 10 times damage reduction, right? So, you're doing 10 times less damage outside of terrify range. So, normally you get really high range on Gara by running range and duration because Massive Vitrify can expand out over time, and then you also have the range on top of that. So you can get like 70, 80 meters, something like that. But that only works with Eclipse Gara, right? Because, well, I think Eclipse is the one that's better because it stacks with the Splintered Augment. Anyway, that only really works with Eclipse Gara, which is not a super lot of damage. But Gara is great in defense because you're invulnerable while casting Mass Vitrify. You give DR to the objective, and then you also buff yourself with Eclipse, and it can go the full duration, the full radius of Mass Vitrify instead of being limited by Terrify. But when running something like Survival, Eclipse just it doesn't do great from what I've tried. And then Terrify, it's able to one shot them, but it's limited range, and then you die because you can't upkeep Splinter Storm with low duration. And if you decide not to dump duration, you're either giving up strength or you're giving up efficiency. So it's a challenge to try and build a Terrify Gara for survival. So I would really recommend sticking to an Eclipse Gara for defense. Or if you really want to, then you could do like a hold Shattered Lash with melee Dottie, which is really good. I think it does like 2 million damage per hold Shattered Lash. I wouldn't really recommend this type of build. I will show the play style really quickly, but it's pretty normal. You'll go up in the air, and then you cover the area above and the people down here. So like if there was someone up there, you would also hit them. You terrify, and then you break the thing. You can spam this like forever. Um, my damage isn't great because I haven't procced Fury, and I haven't built up any kills with my melee or anything. But you know, you can spam this stuff forever because you have Sahasa and Energize. So you're getting 225 energy every, I think, 20 seconds is how often Sahasa digs. So you don't even have to pick up energy orbs. So don't get me wrong, it'd be really great if you were invincible. Maybe if you had like a Dante on your team. Um, but in general, I wouldn't really recommend Gara for trying to KPM max. I would say try to stick to using her in defense. Good nuker, defense only, my opinion. Gauss build, 5 ability duration. Just remember, corrosive projection is good for your mid-charge combo. If you are never going to use Sunder while you are charging your red line, you do not need it. You can replace it with whatever you want. I'd recommend Energize in combination with Sahasa, because enemies can be frozen on the ground, which means they are not shooting you, which means you are not getting energy from the two. If you are not freezing the enemies or killing them, then I guess that's fine. But I don't know why you would do Heat Sunder only. This can be replaced with Efficiency if you want. It doesn't matter. Make sure you have Archon Vitality. Besides that, just build range, build some efficiency, build duration as much as you can. You can run Roar Sunder. I really dislike Roar Sunder. You're getting like more damage that you don't particularly need at sacrifice of many other stats. Like you lose range and you lose so much efficiency. It's horrible in my opinion. I would not recommend running Roar Sunder. As far as Gauss gameplay, so it's very different when you're charging Redline and when you have Redline fully charged. While you're charging Redline, you have two real options. So you can either do the heat cold dash combo. So you'll hold down sprint, you'll do heat dash cold. This is net positive. So you'll still be charging. It'll be a little slower than the 1/3 minimum that you need to charge Redline, but it's still decently quick. Well, no, Redline is never quick, but compared to the bare minimum, you are still getting stuff pretty fast. And you have Sahasa, so even though they're mostly frozen on the ground, you're still not running out of energy super quick. But if you don't want to get Carpal Tunnel for medium damage, then what I would recommend is you can either just Mach Rush in a corner, like this, to upkeep your battery, or run in a circle, or, just dash around. Once your Redline is charged, it's way easier. You're immune to most damage, and then you can just Heat Sunder 4 times, and then Cold Sunder. So Heat Sunder 4 times, Cold Sunder, and they're dead. I don't know why they didn't die the first time, but you just Heat Sunder 4 times, and then Cold Sunder. It's mainly 3 times for stuff in SP, but some of this stuff is a little more tankier. Generally speaking, though, it just takes too long to charge Redline. So, like, with a 76-second duration, I need to spend, like, 35 seconds. I know it's a 1/3 minimum, but you end up spending more if you do the combo, which I would recommend. And it's just not great. When I was doing my KPM runs, I was getting, like, 240 pace, and then once my Redline ran out, the pace dropped down a lot. So most of the time I would end up around 200, but I would die more frequently than others because dying while charging isn't really uncommon on Gauss. But like I said, you can replace, or maybe I didn't say this, you could also replace this with Aegis if you're dying a lot while charging. It just depends on preference. But if you want to play Gauss, that's the build I would recommend. Alright, honorable mentions. You got Equinox and Dante. Equinox is literally just a worse version of Gara for this purpose only, not in general. Trying to get high KPM in survival with Equinox is just not... It's not great. I mean, you can, but she's Terrify reliant, which means that, you have to deal with the max Terrify radius, the max enemies affected by Terrify, and then, you also have to deal with the Mend and Maim gimmick, which is basically just a better mark for death. You have to actually kill things with Glaive Prime, and then you get to use your Mend and Maim. So it's just a worse Gara in my opinion, worse energy, worse survivability, more active. And then Dante, just line of sight, kind of kills it on most tile sets. He can be really good on some tile sets, like around 200 KPM, even with the 72 capped FPS. But in general, just having an LOS check isn't great. Alright, now for the dishonorable mentions. If your favorite frame made this list, I'm sorry. This is not calling your frame bad. It's just saying they are not a super great nuker. So we'll start off with Octavia. I don't know why people call Octavia a nuker. Her gimmick of being invisible got replaced by Horus, and her resonator is just alright. It's not even that good. Koumei, Sickening Pulse Koumei exists. That's it. It exists. That's all it does. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just not great. And Jade's nuking is literally fake. It's not good. Garuda is actually good. Garuda Breach Surge is really good. You gotta run like a full macro or like get carpal tunnel, but it's good. Garuda Sunder is cope. Just use Nezha. You're clicking like 500 times to kill an enemy. Like, come on now. That's it for the dishonorable mentions. Alright, so basically disclaimers and rules for how I went about the KPM stuff. So all these were done at 72 FPS. I started them all within a minute and a half of the mission timer, and they all end exactly a minute later from that point in the mission timer. So I did allow precasting, so like they could cast buffs at 55 seconds instead of 1 minute. But, I didn't allow like Saryn to get 6 minutes of building spores before the start, right? Like it was at most 10 seconds beforehand. I think the most was indeed 10 seconds with Saryn. I did each run about 10 times. It was the best of my ability. The Sevagoth run really sucked. That could have been much better, but the rest of them I think they were pretty alright. Alright, this is the Saryn Spore run. Starts at 35, ends at 304, 269 kills in 1 minute. I precasted about 10 seconds beforehand, but it wasn't much Spore buildup beforehand. Alright, this is the Sunder Nezha run. Just running around doing normal Sunder Nezha activities. This one was 232 kills in a minute, started at exactly 0, and ended at 232. Okay, Cyte Build footage. Started at 0 kills, ended at 224. If you want to know more about Cyte Build, just see the video on Cyte. There's probably a better map for this. Probably also a better spot in this map for this, but good enough. At higher FPS, you could probably get around 400. I'm pretty sure this is just like the best weapon frame combo in the game for kills per minute. Yeah. Alright, Hildryn gameplay. Started at 0, ended at 214. Not really much to say. It's just like Cyte Build, but flying. Alright, to finish out the trilogy of projectile-based nukers, got Ogris Saryn. Ogris Mirage also works. It doesn't really matter that much. Ogris is good. Yeah, started at 23 kills, ended at 225. Alright, so this is Sevagoth. Like I said before, this is not an accurate representation of him. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I just suck at him. Even in high FPS scenarios, I can't really break 350 very easily. You might also be thinking that this particular part of the tile set is really stupid to use with Sevagoth, since there's like the elevation changes, but I promise this was the best of like 13 runs. Yeah, I'm just a bad Sevagoth player for real. Alright, so Voruna started at 10 kills, ended at 195. Yeah, this is also not a great representation of Voruna. There's a lot of RNG with like where the target is, and then there's also RNG with like what Horus decides to actually hit, because he's just not consistent in that whatsoever. But this was the best run of the ones I ran. Alright, that is the end of the video. If you play a nuker that was not on this list, that is not absolute copium, then feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will amend the description. Besides that, if you think that the KPM numbers in this video are too low, it was likely because we capped to 72 FPS. I do not know what the highest achieved KPM in 72 FPS is, without murmur spawning, but Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like around 300. In uncapped FPS, it's like 1.1K with Saryn. So yeah, that's why the numbers are low. Please do not start hating. Goodbye.